I go to London. My name is Emma, and I am a student from Brazil. I'm learning English, but my English is not very good. I was so excited when I got the chance to travel to London for the first time. I'd never been outside of Brazil before, and now I was going to visit one of the most famous cities in the world. I couldn't wait to see Big Ben, the London Eye, and of course, eat British food. When I arrived at the airport in London, I felt both excited and nervous. It was a huge airport, and there were so many people talking in English. I had my map and my phone, but I still wasn't sure if I would understand everything. I was ready for an adventure, but I was also a little scared. The first thing I did was get into a taxi. I'd heard that taxis in London were famous, and I wanted to ride in one. The driver was very nice, but I didn't understand much of what he said. He asked, "Where are you going?" I thought for a moment. "To the big hotel, please," I said, pointing to my hotel address on my phone. The driver nodded, but he looked at me like I was crazy. "What hotel?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I quickly looked at my phone and said, "The big one." "It's big." He blinked. "Big?" "Yes, very big," I said, even though I didn't really know which hotel he was talking about. I felt embarrassed. He smiled kindly and said, "You mean the Hilton?" I nodded happily. "Yes, the Hilton." When I finally arrived at the hotel, I was so happy to check in and get to my room. But I was still nervous about using my English. I decided to go out and explore London. I walked around the streets, looking at the beautiful buildings, red buses, and the famous phone booth. I felt like I was in a movie. After a while, I started to feel hungry. My stomach was growling. I looked around and saw a big restaurant. I thought, this looks like a good place to eat. I walked in and the waiter greeted me. "Hi, how many are you?" he asked. "Just me," I said, smiling. The waiter led me to a table and I sat down. He gave me a menu and I started looking at all the food options. I didn't understand many of the words, but I saw steak and I was very excited. I had heard so much about British steaks. I decided that I wanted to try one. When the waiter came back to take my order, he asked, "How would you like your steak cooked?" I froze. I had no idea what he meant. How? I thought. How many steaks should I order? I asked myself. Maybe he's asking me how many I want. Should I say 2? I looked up at the waiter and said, "Big steak, very big, big one, please." Waiter looked at me confused. "You mean, how do you want it cooked? Do you want it rare, medium, or well done?" I had no idea what that meant. Cooked? I thought. I want it cooked, of course. Is he asking if I want it cooked? "Cooked," I said nervously. "Very, very cooked. All the way cooked." The waiter was still looking at me, unsure. You want it well done? He asked, trying to understand. Yes, I said. Very, very well done. Thank you. He nodded, but he still seemed a little confused. He left and went to the kitchen. I felt proud of myself. I ordered steak like a real Londoner. But now I was a little worried. I kept thinking, what if they cook it wrong? I don't want to eat raw meat. I started imagining eating a steak that was still mooing like a cow. The waiter came back and placed my steak in front of me. I looked at it and I was shocked. The steak was black. I mean, completely black. It looked like something that had been sitting in a fire for hours. I stared at it for a moment, unsure of what to do. I tried to cut the steak with my fork, but it was so hard I couldn't even make a dent. I pushed harder and harder with the fork, but it was like trying to cut through a rock. My face turned red. I could feel the eyes of the people around me. They were all staring, and I didn't know what to do. It was so embarrassing. Finally, I put the fork down and tried to take a bite. But the steak was so tough and dry that it was impossible to chew. My teeth wouldn't go through it. I felt like I was trying to chew on a piece of leather. I quickly pushed my plate away. I looked around and saw that people were eating their food without any trouble. Some of them were even smiling, enjoying their meal. I felt like the biggest failure in the world. Then the waiter came over. He smiled and asked, "How's the steak, madam?" I smiled back, but I was thinking, how can I tell him it's terrible without being rude? It's very cooked, I said. Too cooked, like very, very cooked. Maybe more than I wanted, but thank you. The waiter looked down at the steak and then back at me. He smiled and said, "Next time you can ask for a less well-done steak if you like." I nodded quickly. "Yes, next time," I said. But in my mind, I was thinking, there will be no next time for this steak. After I finished, or should I say, tried to finish my meal, I paid the bill and left the restaurant as quickly as possible. As soon as I stepped outside, I laughed to myself. My English might not be perfect, but at least I would always remember my first steak in London. Later, I went to the famous London Eye. I wanted to take some beautiful photos, and I wanted to forget about my steak disaster. As I took pictures, I remembered that my trip to London was full of funny moments, big mistakes, and lots of learning. I didn't speak English perfectly, but I was proud that I kept trying. Sometimes things don't go as planned, and that's okay. It's important to laugh at yourself, learn from your mistakes, and keep trying. Even if your steak is burned, your English might still be improving with each step